Good morning, afternoon, or evening, everybody, and welcome to Pangolin, the conservation podcast, the show dedicated to exploring the world's underappreciated conservation stories. The stories that inspire me, and I hope will inspire you too. I'm your host, Jack Baker, and once again, it's come around very, very quickly this year. We are back to celebrate the incredible World Lemur Day. Every year, we have an amazing guest who works either in or on or around the topic of lemurs and on Madagascar. And it's always a highlight of my calendar because I've just met some of the most fabulous, amazing people through celebrating this day. And I'm so excited it's come around again. This year, is no exception because I'm joined by two amazing guests from the Dr. Abigail Ross Foundation for Applied Conservation. Dr. Abby Ross, the Executive Director, and Jhoanny Rasojivola, the Field Director and Conservation Manager. Thank you so much for joining me today, guys.
Thank you so much for having us, Jack. We're super excited.
Yeah, thank you.
No, it's my absolute pleasure, and I fully mean everything. Every time World Lemur Day Rock comes around, like I'm just like, of course it's on the calendar. Like Lynn from the Lemur Conservation Network reaches out every year, so big shout out to her and provides amazing guests for me to speak to. So yes, and I'm sure throughout the episode we'll talk about how we can celebrate that day. But before we get into all of that, I think the important thing to do is actually introduce who you two are, but you two know yourself far better than I could ever find out on the internet. So I don't know. Do we want to go? Abby, do you want to go first? Do you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are?
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Abby Ross, and I am a primatologist and conservationist. I was born and raised in Rockford, Illinois. So I'm a proud Midwestern gal, kind of through and through. And I live now just not far from where I grew up. I earned my PhD in evolutionary anthropology from the University of Toronto, where I studied maternal care, nutrition, and stress in Cockerel cephalica, which is a critically endangered lemur species endemic to northwestern Madagascar. I'm the founder and executive director of the Dr. Abigail Ross Foundation for Applied Conservation, or better known as TDARFAC. So are yeah, I hate that my name's in the whatever. Anyway, it's a lawyer, but anyway, our mission is to tackle major conservation challenges through research, local partnerships, and capacity building. Really connecting science with on the ground conservation and empowering scientists from primate habitat countries to lead conservation efforts.
Amazing, amazing, and I think you've set up everything I'm going to ask you about so nicely. So that's brilliant. And no, I get the thing. I get the thing about a name because Pangolin. You'd think Pangolin, the conservation podcast. That's not that many words, and still I get conservation pangolin, Jack pangolin, and it all gets muddled up. So I fully understand the name thing sometimes can be, yeah, you're like it's fine. I appreciate a good little anagram as well. Um, yes, that's brilliant. And Johanny, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. So, hi everyone. Thank you so much, Jack Baker, for having us in this podcast today. I'm Jhoanny Rasojivola, and I'm from Madagascar, also born and raised. I studied primatology at the University of Antananarivo, where I earned my master's degree. I've also worked for TDARFAC for little over than a year now as a field director alongside of a good friend but also a colleague of mine, which is the Dr. Justori Antonovan Rambiluniana. He is the head of the veterinarian for lemur conservation at TDARFAC also.
Mhm.
Yeah, thank you.
Amazing. Amazing. And I think what's really interesting, and I think what's going to be a really nice dialogue, right, is like all of us are from very different parts of the world, but all of us really care about this kind of topic and care about these things. And I wonder, especially for the two of you, like I always like to get a little sense of like where do people's passions come from, right? And what pathway did they go down to get to the point they're at now? Especially like when it's like either you're the kind of native species to maybe things that are around you, or a fascination with species that are on the other side of the world. How did that connection even begin to happen? So like, yeah, I wonder, Abby, where did your love for maybe Madagascar come? Did it come through the PhD, and that's where you realized actually these animals are amazing, or where did that story begin?
Mm, I would say, I've kind of always been fascinated by animals and especially their behavior. As a kid, I dreamt of becoming like a wildlife veterinarian or marine biologist, but then in university, math and like hard sciences weren't exactly my strong suit. So then I kind of found anthropology and fell in love with that kind of area. But I suppose if I had to kind of pick a couple of like key moments, a turning point for me came during my freshman year at UW Madison when I actually chaperoned my former high school biology field trip to the Galapagos Islands. And at that same time, I took my first anthropology course. So that kind of like in tandem really kind of shaped things for me. And shout out to Mr. Buell, my high school biology teacher, for being an early inspiration to me. But then, kind of from there, I would say in college later on, a field school on Bioko Island in Equatorial Guinea, where there's pangolins, uh, gave me firsthand experience with sort of like the complexities of conservation. I saw wildlife being hunted and sold in local markets for food there. So it was, kind of a difficult thing to see, but also deeply instructive, I would say. And that moment really showed me that conservation is really never just about animals and their habitats. It's about people, livelihoods, and justice too. And in terms of TDARFAC. During the pandemic, I worked closely with a group of Malagasy graduate students, including Joanny, whose resilience and brilliance truly inspired me. So it was really their leadership that made it clear to me that the future of conservation in Madagascar depends on supporting local scientists, and that became the driving force behind TDARFAC.
Hmm. That's really amazing. And I wonder then, Johanny, how does your, because we have this point where the paths kind of converge and come together. So I wonder, before you got to that graduate student who you two meet and kind of then this organization comes to be and all these things, Johanny, what was your path up to that kind of point of intersection?
Oh, that's a really good question. And to be honest to you all, being a conservationist and also primatologist wasn't my first choice before. Like many children in Madagascar, I once dreamed to be a doctor or a pilot. But then at the university, I choose to do science because all of my parents are scientists also, so they were kind of inspired me to do science. So I did science, but at that time I didn't want to do primatologist yet. But then me and my friend, we went to a zoo as an intern, and we had to take care of lemurs there, and I fell in love with them, especially one female lemur mongoose. We had to take care of her, and it was just love, I would say. And then I deepened that affection during my master's fieldwork, where I had to study Propithecus cocoroli, also known as Shifaka, cocorol shifaka. And I had to wake up very early in the morning and going back to the camp late. It was tiring, but still I was still in love with the species, with lemurs. And also it was at that time I met Dr. Abby.
Amazing. Yeah, that's amazing. And I can see, yeah, I can see they're a very, 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 very easy like type of animal to love, right? They're not. It's there's sometimes, and not to say there's a hierarchy of species that are easier and harder to love, but there's some that are extra charismatic. So I can see why, yeah, it would be a working with them so directly and so hands on, kind of maybe influence the pathway that you would go down, because it would be, yeah, that's so charming, so incredible. um and yeah, I guess then, so yeah, we get to this point where the two of you have found very different pathways, but you've ended up kind of in this place, and you mentioned that's kind of where I'm going to try not TDARFAC.
Perfect.
Perfect, perfect. TDARFAC kind of comes from, and that kind of begins. And then, so Abby, maybe like, yeah, where did that inspiration for kind of starting this organization then come from? Was it meeting people like Jhoanny, or was it something that had always been in your mind? Like, what? Yeah, how did that begin to happen?
Yeah, thanks for asking. I would say both things are true. So it kind of came from the realization that there's this gap between research and real world action. Um, and we really wanted to create something that would help bridge that gap. So our kind of overall big mission is to help solve conservation challenges by supporting scientific research, building capacity, amplifying local voices, and partnering with communities. Um, we fund projects through our annual grant program, which is guided by an advisory council of leading experts in ecology, anthropology, genetics, veterinary medicine, and conservation leadership. The foundation really grew out of, which we talked about earlier a bit, a 20 in 2021, a mentorship project with Dr. Mitch Irwin at NIU and Dr. Travis Steffens at the University of Guelph, and many Malagasy partners at the University of Antananarive. So kind of what happened was during the pandemic, when travel was impossible and funding dried up for a lot of students, we supported a cohort of Malagasy graduate students conducting fieldwork in Sinjarive protected area, which is in eastern Madagascar, and Ankara National Park in the northwest. So their success from this project was sort of became just the spark, not the spark, the spark that inspired Darfac's creation.
Hmm. Amazing, amazing. And like, I wonder, like, just to keep, I feel like, yeah, I'd be intrigued to know from like watching that happen as one of maybe the graduate students who helped create that spark, or maybe like, like, what was that like, that process for you, Jhoanny? Like,
First, I didn't believe it because, as you said, we are still young, and compared to other person, we have less experiences. But that's the thing I really like about TDARFAC and also about Dr. Abigail Ross is she believes in us. She kind of see the anger, I would say, the anger of um, the anger in us to protect the nature, to protect our biodiversity, to protect our lemurs, to protect all the animals, all the species. If we can do it all around the world, not just in Madagascar. So to be honest, I was scared. I was afraid. But then Dr. Abby and her husband Eric Lund and all our collaborators also they had our backs, if I can say the word. They had our backs, so it helped us to improve more. It helped us to step out, I will say. Yeah, so that's basically what I felt.
mhm. That's amazing. It must. Sorry, Abby, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say he's giving me way too much credit, but I'll take. Thank
Mhm.
you.
Oh, no, I think it's like it seems like a very mutual exchange of being inspired by each other, which is so nice. And I think like I don't know, it's also it must be a nice thing to hear, because I think there's sometimes, I don't know, where we get caught up in things and we forget the people who inspired us sometimes, because we're so focused on the work itself, right? And we're so focused on what's in front of us that we sometimes forget to be like, actually, all these amazing people around me are why I've gotten to where I am. And like, and that, like, it doesn't matter the necessarily like the classic, I don't know, we see things sometimes as a hierarchy of like, oh, Abby, maybe you were in the position of driving some of the organization creation, but equally, Jhoanny, you were like, even like your like that wouldn't have happened without you. So there's this kind of like break it. That's a nice to see that breaking down of like, you know, just a nice plane of appreciation for everyone involved is so nice, so nice and wonderful.
Yeah.
Um,
Well said, and I couldn't agree more.
mhm,
Absolutely.
mhm. No, it's really lovely to see, and I wonder then, like. now. Like we are kind of we've talked a little bit about some of the we've talked a little bit about some of the work that the organization does, and some of the pillars and things that it's kind of built on. And I know today we're going to talk a little bit. So for listeners who tuned into last year's episode, we talked a little bit. Lynn was on as the guest for World Lemur Day, and she actually mentioned one of your incredible projects, about kind of the reconnection of two forests. And I wonder, before we get into that project, is there anything else you think that we need to lay the groundwork for? I feel like we've done a fairly good job so far. But is there anything we're missing? Any key points? No.
I don't think so. I'm happy to I can kind of revisit what Lynn
Hmm.
spoke about last year and kind of give
Hmm.
like a broad update, and then
Hmm.
maybe Joanny can talk more specifics about the project.
Brilliant. That sounds perfect. Well, yes, for anybody who didn't, well, I kind of gave the little setup there of like the reconnection of two forests, which is already an exciting, I feel, hook for people. So yeah, Abby, do you want to lead the way? What did Lynn introduce us to last year? What have you been doing? What's the project? Tell us about it.
So this project is, just to kind of start off, it's incredibly kind of close to my heart. And just going back to what we were talking about earlier, I cannot emphasize enough that it's really the result of a powerful collaboration among international and Malagasy partners. So, like, sure, it's us here talking about it today, but there's many, many, many people behind the project and helping. So, just to kind of bring that to the forefront. So, Lynn talked about this last year, but in 2023, we began reforesting a 150 hectare native forest corridor to reconnect Andasi Bay Mentandi National Park and Anala Mazotra Special Reserve. These are two of Madagascar's most ecologically rich and most visited protected areas in eastern Madagascar. They're relatively easy to get to. They're from Antananarive, and many, many people visit them each year. So these two forests were naturally connected until the 1960s, when large areas were cleared for zebu pasture, leaving this sort of gap of grassland and eucalyptus that fragmented habitat for lemurs and other wildlife. Our goal is to rebuild that lost connection, allowing species to move freely again and bringing ecological integrity back to the landscape. A little bit more detail. Like I said before, it's a deeply collaborative effort. We're working with the Mad Dog Initiative, our partner, Ecovision Village, Association Mitsinju, Dr. Kim Valenta, and many others, particularly Mr. Claude. I'm going to mess up his last name, but I'm going to try. Rakutu Arivula? Nope, that's not right. Joanny, help me.
Uh, Mr. Claude Rakutoar Velu.
Yes. So
Yes.
he is the botanist and kind of like the lead person on the ground, um, helping with these efforts. So basically, Mr. Claude and our team of 12 planters and two seedling monitors ensure that the right mixture of pioneer tree species and lemur food trees are planted while managing invasive species like eucalyptus and desmodium, which I think Joanny will talk more about. So far, we've replanted over 60 hectares. That's roughly like 72,000 native seedlings. And we are now beginning work on the third 30-hectare section, if that makes sense. So the corridor, I would kind of describe it as it's really kind of become this living laboratory, like kind of combining like reforestation, research, and community engagement to reconnect two of Madagascar's most iconic forests.
Amazing, amazing. And I wonder, just in terms of like, because I know there are it's Madagascar is a very diverse place in terms of the species that are found there. I wonder, just for listeners who maybe are less familiar with that particular part of Madagascar, what are some of the like maybe key species that they can have in their heads of like these are the types of things that we're helping in this place?
Joanny, do you want to?
Yeah, sure. So so if you say Andasibe, the first thing that comes in your mind will be Indri Indri, or the local name, the vernacular Malagasy name will be Babakutu. That's the yeah, and the thing interesting about that lemurs is he's the only lemur who doesn't have tails. He does have a tails, but it's very very small compared to other species. So yeah.
hmm That's yeah, and for anybody, if anyone is listening who doesn't know what an injury is, go and look up because they are fabulously incredible, amazing creatures. No, that's amazing. And then I guess then, Abby, you kind of gave that big picture thinking about like the initiative and what it is and what it's connecting and what does that look like? I suppose on the ground from your perspective, Johnny. What's your involvement in this project and what's your role?
So my role in this project is, as Dr. Abe said, we have an issues with invasive species there. So me with Mr. Claude and 12 other amazing guys in the field, we are trying to find what is the best way to manage these invasive species. Here, I want to say we have many, many invasive species such as the Lantana camara, Rubus mollicanus, or Psidium cateyanum. But as Dr. Abe said, the Desmodium is the main problem. And right now, we are trying to find what is the best way to manage them and more efficiently, because right now we are still doing it manually, like using machete, using the most basic tools to do it. So it's very tiring, but also uh, resource consuming at some way. So that's basically what I'm doing in the corridor project.
Mhm. That must be incredibly exhausting. Yes, I can imagine if it is a manual, is what type of I wonder what's the size of kind of team of people doing this? Is it just you, or is it a big group? Like what? Who's involved on the ground in that kind of work?
So me, Mr. Claude,
Yeah.
and with 12 other person. So
Okay.
in total 14.
Okay. That's amazing. That's really really interesting. And I imagine then something I before we get into kind of some of the maybe successes that we've seen, I think it's always worth reflecting on some of the challenges that maybe have come about while you're trying to do this conservation work. Because as much as we'd like all conservation to be nice, smooth sailing, like and brilliant success and things coming back and everything's brilliant and wonderful, I think it's also sometimes important to kind of reflect on those more challenging moments. And I wonder, is that kind of like is the manual nature of the work kind of the challenging part, or what are some of the challenges you face in this project? Both maybe from Abby, your perspective as kind of overseeing, and then Johanny, your kind of work on the ground. Like, yeah,
Yeah, I love this question. I think it's really important, especially for researchers and people to be like really transparent about things that are hard, right? Because you don't want to like, oh, everything's magical and amazing and going smoothly. It's like, no, we know that everyone runs into difficulties. So I think that's such an important question. Um, I would say in general, conservation in Madagascar comes with huge challenges. The terrain is quite difficult. There's limited infrastructure, and then just kind of understanding and working in the realities of working in one of the poorest countries in the world is very can be very challenging. Funding, of course, is a never-ending hurdle. Um, and I think too, I would say that the biggest challenge and maybe arguably the most important one, at least from my perspective, is making sure that conservation is equitable and community driven, which sounds easy to do, but actually kind of the application of that is hard and difficult. Um, I would say that like true success, it's not measured by how many seedlings we plant, but really by whether local people see opportunity, pride, and leadership in protecting their forests.
Mhm. Mhm. That's really interesting, and I suppose before we get, Joanne's take on this question, I think, Abby, that kind of particular point is one that's really important to sit with and on a second and maybe reflect a little more on, because yeah, I wonder from your perspective, obviously, TDARFAC has been founded on that idea of kind of like all growing together, all kind of these ideas feeding in. And I wonder from your perspective as somebody who is based on the other side of the world from a lot of the work that you're involved in, how you ensure that kind of that equitable. And I don't expect you to have a full answer to this because it's a very difficult question, but like how do you begin to even start to make sure that that's embedded in the work that you do?
Yeah. So, like you said, I definitely do not have the answer, but I try to find little pieces of this answer like each day in the work that we're doing. I think one of the most important things is that we have a small, strong team that I trust inherently to tell me when I'm wrong, tell me what's working, tell me what's bad. So, Joanny and Dr. Donovan, we have a good like strong relationship, and I would say professionally and also a friendship where we can kind of like check each other a little bit and say what's working and what's not. So I think um, just having those relationships kind of help facilitate that. And then I think too, sometimes, it is difficult when things get a little lost sometimes in translation, or I'm not there to see things on a day-to-day operation standpoint. So I think going to Madagascar is really important and seeing kind of things with my own eyes and then kind of taking it all in and discussing it with the team too.
Mhm, mhm. That's no, that's really interesting because I think it's something that yeah, right, with, like I think this is it's a goal we all strive for is these more equitable partnerships and this kind of, like, thing, but I don't think that there is, like, there's no rule book yet, right, on how to do that. There's no kind of guidance, there's no so hearing people's experience like yours, I think is yeah, is really valuable, especially when it seems to be going very well, and it seems to be going like really 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 well. I wonder, Johanny, like yeah, do you have your take on this question? Maybe what are some of the challenges that you faced? Maybe we can start even with that equitable partnerships question. Is that something that you feel? Is that something that like, or are your challenges and things that you've faced and learned from something else?
So the challenge is it's so a part of the invasive species, but also the eucalyptus plantation. Um, the challenges I think we are facing right now is it's my own perspective is sometimes because we do have idea to manage things, to manage the invasive species, the other problems, but sometimes your idea doesn't match with other people who is in the ground and who is on the ground, sorry. And that things is difficult because you have to change your method, you have to change the way how to deal with the thing, and sometimes that kind of thing will will take your time, and taking your time means taking your resources, taking your money, something like that. And I think that is the most challenge we are facing right now, dealing with other people who are working with us.
Hmm.
Yes.
Hmm. That's really interesting. And do you mean kind of like other kind of community groups maybe in the area? Is it business owners? Is it other conservation groups? Is it like what kind of groups are you talking about there?
So it can be all. Sometimes your partners, your collaborators has their own idea of the project, and you do have your idea too. So trying to find the 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 in between, that part is very difficult. And also sometimes dealing with community too is a little bit difficult because uh, They maybe some of them they just won't have money, and you want things to be done, and you have a certain amount of budget for that thing, but sometimes they ask more to do it. So it's a problem, but not usually frequent, I would say.
Okay. No, that's really interesting. That's really really interesting. Um, yeah, I wonder, Abby, do you have any thoughts on either of those? Or?
No, I agree. I would just kind of add it's, the ability to compromise. It's a give and take, but not like compromise in a way that like the same vision can be achieved. So you're not like compromising with the integrity of the work, but able to, like Joanny said, like that in between. So I think that is is something maybe you don't anticipate necessarily because it's like, oh, we all have like the same end goal, like the same idea, but it's like, but maybe there's not one way to get there, right? And that's okay. So I think, it is valuable to listen to everyone's ideas and stuff and realize there is no one way or the right way to maybe achieve something that a lot of people have different ideas. So yeah.
Mhm, mhm, and it's one of those ones where I think, I don't know, the best episodes of this, one of the best conversations that I had on the show was with somebody who worked in a zoo, and they were kind of like, and we got onto the topic of kind of what do you do if someone doesn't like zoos or doesn't like conservation through zoos, for example, because it can be quite a controversial place in the conservation kind of discourse. And the response was like, well, unless someone challenges us, unless we have these moments of kind of like discourse around things and how do we do things, we're not going to improve. And like we're not going to get better. So I think in all senses, whether it's something controversial or it's seemingly controversial like that, or it's something that is, yeah, just slightly different ways of looking at the same project. I think it is these moments of discourse where, especially like, everybody cares about like everyone probably cares about this wildlife. They're invested to different extents and in different ways, but allowing that dialogue to happen is, I think, sometimes, yeah, where we have the most growth, which is nice to yeah, to hear that you're open to that, because sometimes I feel like our initial reaction is to shut down and go, no, this is the way we're doing it. So it's nice to, yeah, have that, like, actually no, the discourse has to happen, and we will do then what we can, and how, and learn and adjust is really interesting. um yeah, yeah. I wonder, and it's something that I think we would be maybe remiss not to mention on this year's show, and I think it's something that you personally, Abby, had asked to speak on, because I think it is a very important issue to talk about, especially when you're doing conservation work in Madagascar, and that is, as I'm sure a lot of the listeners are aware, and will have seen news stories of. There has been recently some unrest in Madagascar, and I wondered if now seems like the right time for you to maybe to speak on that, and how, from a conservation perspective, maybe that's affecting your work. I wondered if you'd like to speak on that.
Yes, thank you. Well, the current political unrest has been difficult. Our team evacuated Antananarive earlier this week, just to be extra safe. And we know that there's many colleagues now that are just kind of scattered throughout the country, waiting for stability to return. Just like from the TDARFAC kind of perspective, we had to postpone a big outreach event. We had organized a field trip for about 40 children from an orphanage in Antananarive to go to Endasi Bay, and they were going to see lemurs in the wild for the first time and visit the reforestation corridor and see the seedlings and stuff like that. So it was super heartbreaking to delay something like that after so much planning, but, of course, keeping everyone safe had to come first. And just in terms of thinking about this a little bit more, this isn't the first time that conservation has been impacted by political instability. During the 2009 coup in Madagascar, it was widely documented that illegal logging and poaching skyrocketed in the national parks during this time. So there is this pattern that's been seen in other countries as well. When governance weakens, enforcement collapse, and then the forests become incredibly vulnerable. And the other thing I think it's important to remember that Madagascar only gained its independence from France in 1960, and that colonial history really still shapes today's environmental and social realities. Um, in order for conservation to be sustainable, it has to center on Malagasy leadership and voices of the younger generation. So, last thing I'll add is that, TDARFAC, we stand in solidarity with the Gen Z movement calling for basic needs like clean water and electricity for all Malagasy people, um, because environmental and social justice are inseparable things.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. And Johanny, did you have
Yeah.
anything you wanted to add there?
Yes. Thank you so much for that question. It's a really important question to me, to us as a Malagasy citizens. Um, uh, right now, the Gen Z especially, they have been protesting for 2 weeks. Thankfully, the things are getting better right now. But from the conservation aspect of it, you know, because of the protestation, our team in the capital was not able to go in the field. So so that's one problem. But also another problem is the connection, the Wi-Fi for us. It's depend on the electricity. So it means we cannot connect with we cannot connect at some point with the local team, and also that we have difficulties to have access to Wi-Fi in Madagascar. You have to pay for it, and sometimes it's not enough. And that not having enough electricity, it causes a lot of problem because they cannot send the data. They cannot send the data from the field to the capital. So so we have to wait then, and thankfully it's getting better right now. The situation in Madagascar, they are they are trying to move forward to choose the right person to be the president, and to how can I say, to build a new government. Yes.
Mhm. Yeah. Thank you both so much for sharing, because I think it would have been an unusual thing not to talk about, but that doesn't make it an easy thing to talk about. Like it's not like especially when it concerns so many people and places, and that you are so entwined with and so invested in, and so yeah, are part of you. So thank you so much for sharing, and yeah, for giving space. And I think yeah, all of us here would, yeah, and all of the people, and I think it's an important moment actually to say, because one of our biggest audiences, I think probably because of the Lemur Conservation Network, who keep sending me brilliant guests, is in Madagascar, and we have had so many amazing people who both work there and are from there, have family there, be on the show, and I think it's an important thing to recognize, and just yeah send support and love to anybody who might be having one of these moments of stress of having to move and evacuate and do all these things. Like, I hope that everybody who is listening and everyone who has been on the show and is involved in the show is safe and well, and is able to yeah keep their work going and keep themselves going in whatever way they can. I think so thank you so much for wanting to speak about it. um I think what's important though also is that we highlight that, like, we have talked about challenges, but that doesn't prevent amazing success, right? And there may be these things that happen, and there may be these things that kind of go on, but that has not stopped Johanny and your team, and Abby and your team, and everyone producing incredible results. And I think, just to kind of speak on that slightly, I'll just move on to that kind of that positive moment. What are some of the successes maybe we can talk about? What are the good news, the good things, the yeah, those things that you kind of like to shine a spotlight on as the successes of this project, and maybe some of the others, if there's any that you want to speak on.
Yeah, thank you. So we're already seeing ecological recovery in the corridor area. So seedlings are thriving. You see some birds and insects returning, and even early signs of lemurs starting to use the corridor again. So this was something that I did not anticipate as a primatologist. And after 2 years of working on this project with everyone, so there's some evidence of at least two lemur species moving through the corridor, which is like incredibly exciting. And this work, so Dr. Kim Valenta's graduate student, Thomas Kelly at the University of Florida, has been conducting bioacoustic monitoring in the corridor area for his PhD project. So he's analyzing recordings from audio moth devices, like all along the corridor and in different areas in the region, which is really helping us to track how species are beginning to use these habitats. And Joanny can talk more in detail about that because he helped a lot with this project. But kind of on a totally separate note, the corridor region also has be kind of this, I don't know, I would say become sort of like a hub for youth education. There's an environmental club called Nkiziniala, which means Children of the Forest, that is led by this amazing woman, Tatun, who is from Ndasi Bay, and she is the research, or wait, no, she's the educational like outreach coordinator for Association Mitsinju. And so many of these club participants cannot afford to like attend primary school. So the club kind of serves as their main source of education. And so they do all kinds of different activities. They've visited the corridor, they've planted seedlings, so it's really kind of turning conservation into something that's hands-on, tangible, which I think sometimes it can like seem so far away or just like these little dots on a map or data points. So I think having kids especially see things from such a tangible and like hopeful perspective is really cool. So we're really proud. TDARFAC is proud to help support Nkisi Niala's activities, and it's wonderful. When I was in Madagascar this past summer, just yeah, spending time with the kids, and they did like an entire like production, like amazing production of, they had like a skit about like
Hmm.
the forest and like people in the forest, and yeah, just dancing and skits and music, and it was like super incredible. And yeah, I felt so lucky to see that.
Hmm. That's yeah, that's amazing. And I think like this is the good thing, right? About like when kids are involved in conservation, I think we often undervalue how powerful kids can be because
Yes.
they have such an incredible perspective and voice and an important perspective and voice. And also add in the extra factor of it's really cute when they sing and do all this extra stuff is, like it's massive ticks for me of like you have an important voice and you're really cute doing it. Like, yeah, what a win. Like it's fantastic. That's amazing. Like, yeah, that's actually incredible. As someone who works a lot on environmental education, I'm always like, yes, that's what we like to hear about. That's amazing. Um yeah, I that's incredible. Yeah, I guess like I you kind of linked it perfectly to maybe stuff that Johanny might want to speak on. But for you, Johanny, either taking Abby's prompt or going in your own direction, what are the successes that you see and the things that you're proud of this project?
Yes, yes. The scientific aspect of it for me, it's a huge success. We have, as Dr. Abby said, we have a student, a PhD student, who is working on the bioacoustic of lemurs in that area, where he set it a bunch of audio moth, that's the name of the device, to record the sound of the lemurs in the all along the corridor. So that's a really good thing. But another thing that I would consider as a success is TDARFAC. With our partners, we have been able to present the project to on a broader scale, like at the international conference, like IPS, International Primatological Society, this year, or ASP this year too, or in Mauritius or Uganda, or to the student at the University of Antananarivo, or some NGOs. So we have noticed that these people kind of appreciate what we are doing, and they are somehow wanted to collaborate with us in terms of that project. We have many students also who wanted to be a volunteer at the NGO right now. So I would consider that as a success, because for me it means that they like what we are doing, and I hope that the project we are doing right now will be seen as an example to other NGOs who are willing to do forest restoration in their area, because Madagascar suffer a lot with forest fragmentation, and it will help if many NGOs all around Madagascar will do the same, and it will be very good if they are inspired by what we are doing in Adasibe.
hmm hmm I think that's nice, right? And it kind of adds again to this like people piece, right? Of like what we've been talking about, of like it's about that education, it's about like that kind of collaboration. It's about fostering these good relationships, and it's about more than just, as much as the ecosystems and the wildlife and all these things are so important. The impact also is when you see people caring about the things that are going on. I think that's like, it's so hard to quantify sometimes, and it's so hard to write down, and it's so hard to register sometimes, but it's so important. And I think it's, yeah, it's amazing to hear that this is already inspiring people. I think is really incredible. Abby, did you have something to add there? Oh, you just are looking so proud for the listener. She's looking so proud of Johanny and his work. Like, yeah, it's yeah, no, it's amazing. It's amazing. Um, I guess then we only, I'm noticing the time, and it has absolutely flown by, as it always does when it comes to World Lemur Day. But before we wrap up, I do think, and I ask you the kind of questions I ask everyone who comes on the show. I did want to give you a chance of, like, we obviously have focused on this one project with kind of the reforestation project. Is there anything that we haven't touched on that you're like, I'd like to just give a quick shout out to this person or this collaboration or this project that we've done before we move on to kind of wrapping up a little bit?
Oh boy, I have two, but they're a little long. Is that okay?
I think that's fine. I'm here. It's my, we're, for listeners, we're recording this on a Friday night, and this is exactly how I want to spend my Friday night. So yep, okay. I'll
Okay, maybe get a pint or something. I'm still on coffee here in Central Time,
oh,
but yeah. So okay, I guess beyond reforestation, but also it is all about reforestation. So let me explain. So we're also currently building a women and children's health and education center in Indasi Fadimi, which is near Indasi Bay. So this facility will serve more than 10 communities living in the same region as the reforestation corridor. So right now, people in these areas must walk um, many hours just to receive very basic medical care. Earlier this year, TDARFAC, together with Marie Stopes International, the Mad Dog Initiative, Mitsinju, a lot of these same partners, and the local CSB2 clinic ran a mobile healthcare clinic to understand community needs and see how residents would respond to new services. So our teams had to raft across this like huge river that the current is very strong with all of their gear, like equipment, all of the medical supplies on like these small handmade bamboo rafts with like 2 to 3 people at a time. Maybe a pig or two was seen on the bamboo raft. Um, and just to put this into context a little bit, like by Malagasy standards, like this area in Madagascar is not even considered like remote relative to a lot of other parts of the country. We're right by Indasi Bay, the big park. So anyway, so this we provided malnutrition screening for children, women's healthcare services, including like cervical cancer screenings, vaccinations, and other essential care. So this mobile clinic helped us build trust within the community and identify which services are needed most, ensuring that like the new healthcare center directly responds to those priorities. So right now we're kind of like just in the beginning. The land kind of preparation phase has been completed, and now we're like actually about to start like building the facility. So it's a really exciting thing. But I guess, people ask me like, you study lemurs, like what are you doing building a healthcare center in Madagascar with all these other partners? And, really it's part of like this broader One Health approach, and really just that continuation of recognizing that human, animal, and environmental health are all interconnected in this landscape.
Hmm. Hmm. That's yeah, no, that's incredible. That's incredible, and it's yeah. I imagine that like yeah, I think obviously the physical challenges are one thing that I think we you highlighted especially, but also the that kind of like building of trust and that kind of yeah, that is also equally probably, if not more challenging than the river and the pigs on and the everything else that you have to get through. So that's really inspirational that you've managed to, get through all of those barriers and those things that like could hold up a project and get to that point. You did say there was another one though, so I don't want to. I want to give you a chance to maybe highlight another even more incredible work.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So we also just launched the Lemur Freedom Project, or LFP, and this is a totally new initiative, a new entity created by a bunch of different people from different organizations, ranging from like the Sloth Institute to MDI to the Lemur Conservation Foundation, and we're working in partnership with the Madagascar Research and Conservation Institute. So our goal is very simple but powerful. It is to give lemurs affected by the illegal pet trade a second chance at freedom. So we're by kind of combining field research, veterinary medicine, and rehabilitation. Um, our plan is to establish Madagascar's first coordinated national network for rescuing, caring for, and reintroducing confiscated or pet lemurs. So, at the heart of this project is Nosy Kisamani, which is like a very small island off Madagascar's northwestern coast by Nosy Bay. And this area will serve as a permanent sanctuary for lemurs who cannot safely return to the wild. Um, MRCI is leading the efforts to secure, like, there's so much paperwork to get this done. So they've been leading the way in securing the land authorization and different agreements that are needed, and ministry approvals to ensure long term protection of um, this island, while also kind of like what we're doing is planning like a triage, long-term planning to like create, if we get funding, of course, plan a triage and rehabilitation center near Ivatu, near the airport in Antananarivo, to provide emergency care and professional training for Malagasy wildlife staff. So we're really, the goal is to ensure that no lemur is ever kept as a pet, and that every rescued lemur can live safely and freely, either back in the forest or within the sanctuary of Nosy Kisamani.
That's incredible. I think that's really incredible because I think yeah, there's this perception people maybe have when it comes to the illegal, like, no, well, working in the environments I do, I know how complicated all the paperwork is around even just returning or dealing with an object, rather like a piece of wildlife related something that has been taken illegally. I can't imagine how complicated that then becomes when it's not just an object that is come from either a deceased animal or whatever way it's been harvested or whatever it is. When it's something that is still a living, breathing lemur, that's not like, it's not exactly, it's yeah, that the red tape and the complication and the everything there is something that is, yeah, is incredibly, must be incredibly challenging. And so it's yeah, it's something that, like, I feel like that's the link I want to, that we had the link that Lynn gave us last year talking about this year. I feel like that's something I want to dive into at another time, because I think that's going to be a really interesting project to kind of follow and see how that all develops. And I imagine it will be a lot of hard work, but something that is exceptionally rewarding when you get to see, like, yeah, these it, like, when you get to see these animals get a second chance, when you get to see these things that, like, these stories that, like, I guess when you see them on the news end at however many animals have been claimed, or how many like, getting to see the ending more positively and more ideally, I think it must be so rewarding to be working on something like that.
And like you said, it it's just like such a delicate thing. So we're really
Hmm.
proceeding like slowly, cautiously, like making sure that this
Hmm.
is done well and right and things like that.
Hmm.
So it's moving very slowly, but
Hmm.
kind of slow and steady style. That's what we're doing, which
Mhm.
is good.
Amazing, amazing. And I feel like we've already had so much good news. I don't know if we can take any more good news, but Johnny, if you do, you have anything that you're kind of like, oh, I've not talked about this, but I just want to highlight this project, or anything that we've not mentioned yet, or are you feeling that we've covered everything? What are you thinking?
I think Dr. Abby have covered all the project we are doing right now, but I just want to say that the health center we are building right now, it's very important for me personally, because it will help uh, people who are very struggling even to get to the market. So just imagine if they get sick. That's 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 very difficult, because they have to cross a river, uh, like 500-meter wide. They have to cross it on a sort of craft. And imagine a 5 years old girl doing that, to help her father or her mother to go to the hospital, which is far from them, and the way to go there is very difficult. So
Hmm.
yeah.
Hmm. That's, yeah. It's again that people piece. I think that's something that has come up so nicely throughout this episode, right? Is that, like, you can't just plant a tree and expect conservation to magically happen. There's all these other elements that kind of come in, and yeah, I suppose, like, yeah, the challenge, yes, in maybe getting to the, I think, yeah, the way that we were thinking about the story, and the way that I kind of, my brain processed the story, was like, yeah, it must be a challenge to get to the place to do these things. I hadn't even, my brain hadn't made that connection yet, of actually, to get out of that place is far more challenging, right? Far more challenging, and especially, yeah, dependent on situation and context. That's, yeah, no, that's really, I think that's left us with a lot to consider and think about. And yeah, I think, yeah, it's this episode. I feel like we've covered a lot, and but it's been so wonderful. And before we wrap up, I do like to always ask the same kind of three questions. They've been slightly World Lemur Day tweaked to make it more appropriate for the day, but I do always like to ask the last kind of three quick fire-ish questions, because we've talked a lot about amazing things. We can't overload people, but three quick fire-ish questions about your work. And the first of them is, usually I ask people, what can people do to get more involved in conservation? But I think for World Lemur Day, it has to be like, today is World Lemur Day. You should be celebrating. You should be doing amazing things. You should be supporting all of your favorite charities that exist in Madagascar, that support work in Madagascar, that do all of these things. So, from your guys' perspective, what can people do to celebrate World Labour Day today, to support your work, yeah, what can they be doing to celebrate?
Joanny, do you want to take this? Do you want to go first?
Johanny, yes. I feel like I've let Abby go first for every question. Johanny, it's your turn. You can go first.
Yes. What people can do to celebrate the World Lemur Day? You said. I think my advice will be do the thing you are really good at. And for example, if you are good at taking videos and photos of lemurs in the forest, you can just publish them in the social media. You don't have to wait for something big or uh, or uh, or doing something that needs a lot of money to celebrate the World Lemur Day. You can share, because if you share, sharing is caring. It's an English word, right? So
Yep.
if you share your knowledges about lemurs, if you only just post the photos of lemurs on your Facebook account, Instagram account, or Twitter account, that will have an impact in someone. And just do the things you are really good at, and try to use it for the World Lemur Day. I would say yes.
Yep. I think that's brilliant. I think that's, yeah. And I think that's, and it also contributes, I think, to what we were talking about before about legal wildlife trade, because by promoting and showing and demonstrating good behaviors of where you can see lemurs, where you can, like, that will help, because so much of this is driven by social media, right? And these, like, oh, look at these fun pet things. By doing stuff like that and showing stories, by showing how lemurs should be and how they, like, the stories that can be there and the positive conservation news. Yeah, I think it's more than just care. It's more than just sharing a story that matters. It's also highlighting how it should be done as well, which I think is so wonderful. Abby, did you have anything to add there?
I would just say start where you are. You can make a difference anywhere. Like for World Lemur Day, it doesn't have to happen on the other side of the world. We can celebrate right here in the spirit of lemurs, right? By planting trees, by volunteering or everyday choices that we make. Um, and then I guess the other thing I would say is, especially for students, don't wait until you feel ready to act. Like we need you now. Like we need your passion and spirit now. So take that first step, reach out, get involved. Like your ideas and your energy really truly matter.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's the thing, right? Is we're taught that, like, again, it's that breaking down of how, in a nice circle back to the beginning. It doesn't matter where you think you are on the pecking order, because the pecking order is not always, like, it's not what it's not a thing. It shouldn't be a thing. Like, it's like we exist on a plane in which everyone's opinion and voice on these things matter, and the way that, like, people view the world and perspectives are all going to be entirely different. So yeah, very solid advice. Um, I guess then the next question I ask everyone is, what is your, because pangolin is a celebration of underappreciated creatures, I ask what people's favorite underappreciated species is. But I think for this lemur day celebration, I have to ask, maybe not lemurs, but I'll extend it to any creature you find on Madagascar. What is your favorite underappreciated Madagascar species? Johanny, do you want to go first again?
Yeah, sure. Um, I would say a magnificent frog endemic to Madagascar, which is the Orientiaca. It's a very stunning little red thing, orangish species that you can only found around Muramanga, on the where we are working. And the problem is, as I said, when people think of Madagascar, the first thing that comes in their mind will be lemurs. But it's not only lemurs. We have many, many other species that are as much as important, but as much as beautiful as well. And I know I'm a primatologist, but maybe I'm wrong, but I think the Montelaurontiaca is a little bit underappreciated.
Mhm.
Yeah.
No, I think that's entirely fair, and I think I often get accused of having a mammal bias. So or whenever anyone picks not a mammal, I'm always like, yeah, excellent choice, excellent choice. Abby, what about you?
Definitely tenrecs. So I think they're
Hmm.
a perfect example of Madagascar's evolutionary creativity. They come in all shapes and sizes. Some look like hedgehogs, some kind of look like shrews, and yet they're all part of the same family. So I think some can even make a sound by rubbing like specialized spines together. So a behavior called stridulation, which is something you'd expect in insects, but not in mammals. So I think they use stridulation to like communicate with their infants in the forest understory. But tenrecs are tough, they're adaptable, and surprising. So I think they're such a perfect reminder of just how unique Madagascar's biodiversity really is.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And if you're gonna pick a mammal, like I feel like I dug myself into a corner there, but if you're gonna pick a mammal, it should be a tenrec because they are, yeah, they're bizarre. And yeah, the more you look into, that's the wonderful thing I think that we've highlighted throughout this episode. The more you look into the wonderful world that is Madagascar and its wildlife, the more bizarre but beautiful but wonderful but unique things you find. And like lemurs maybe start the discussion, but there's so much more there that is just incredible. No, that's perfect. And then last question I ask everyone is, I'm sure people will have listened and been intrigued by what's been going on, by intrigued by your work, by intrigued by everything. If they want to learn more and we haven't covered something that they're really passionate about, or they want to learn more about one of your projects, where can people keep up to date with your work? I guess Abby, you probably know all of this. So what are your kind of, yeah? Where should people go?
Yep. So Foundation for Applied Conservation.org,
Hmm.
or follow us on Instagram at nope, that's not right. At T, nope. Yeah, wait. Yeah, TDARFAC. Okay, at TDARFAC, and we're also on Facebook. But we try to share a lot of updates from the field and student highlights and things like that. And the other thing I just want to say quickly: if you're a researcher from a primate habitat country and your work focuses on conservation, our 2026 call for grant proposals will open February 9th and close on March 9th.
Amazing. So yes, plenty of time to start thinking about those things if you're a researcher. But yeah, that's fantastic. That's brilliant. And I guess while everyone's out there looking at things, searching for things, you can also find the podcast on all of those places. We're at Pangolin Podcast on everywhere, and I'm at the Only Jack Baker on places, and you can get me on LinkedIn and all of the social medias and various places. And I'll also place links to all of the links and things that we've talked about throughout the episode. Anything that Jhoanny or Abby have mentioned, I'll pop links in the description of the episode, as well as links for the Lemur Conservation Network as well, who's been so kind in supporting the show every single year with this. Um, and I guess, having said all of that, I do want to say a huge thank you to Lynn and the entire Lemur Conservation Network team for helping set up this episode. I want to, of course, say a huge, very happy World Lemur Day to everybody. I think you have got a lot to think about today. I think you've got a lot that you can start to act on. And yeah, if you're listening to this a week after World Lemur Day, a year after World Lemur Day, I think we've provided enough for you to be getting on with, that there's enough there to be digging into it. So make every day World Lemur Day for you. No, thank you so much for listening and celebrating. And I guess finally, of course, I have to say a huge thank you to both Jhoanny and Abby for your incredible contributions, for your incredible stories, for telling, yeah, such amazing, giving us such amazing perspectives from two very different kind of views. I think it's been so amazing to see how, yeah, you kind of work together and how these projects have all come together. It's been so fascinating. So thank you so much for all of your time today.
Thank you so much for having us, Jack. It's really been a pleasure and such a joy to share what we're doing and to celebrate Madagascar's wildlife and the incredible people protecting it. So thank you so much for the opportunity.
Yeah, yeah. I just wanna thanks you for having us, for inviting us, and giving us this opportunity to share this project. I would say to the world. And yes, thank you so much.
No, thank you so much. But yeah, both of you, thank you so much. It's been absolutely fantastic. And on that note, I will end just by saying a huge thank you again to everybody for listening. A huge thank you to both of you. And until next time, happy World Lemur Day. I hope you have a brilliant, beautiful day and you've learned so much about lemurs and the rest of Madagascar's incredible wildlife. And until next time, goodbye.